Up on today's Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Trent and Biz back together. A look back at Michigan one final time for this week. We talk about former Hawkeye Bret Bielema building a program in a different way at Illinois. And we'll make our picks this week presented by BetOnline. All coming up on today's Locked On Hawkeyes podcast.
Our Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Trent Cotton along with Biz as we are the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast here, getting ready for Illinois coming up this week and one final look back to the game against Michigan. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen each and every day, available wherever you get podcasts. You can also see us on the YouTube. That's right, we are there. Locked On Hawkeyes is where you search, and while you're there, if you could, hit that subscribe button. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Biz, one final look back for me this week, back to the Michigan game, and the first podcast of the week, I broke things down completely, went through, talked about the officiating, brought up the Spencer Lee excuses are for wusses. I was disappointed in Kirk Ferentz on the way home, listening to him both talk to Gary and Ed on the radio and then the post-game press conference where there was a lot of talk about officiating. Did Iowa get a bad whistle? They did. It's going to happen. But it wasn't the reason that they lost the game. And there's so much to get into here, but how are you, first of all? I just coming in hot right away.
Yeah, Trent. So I'm doing fine. You know, Trent, last week I went with the optimism angle on this podcast, and I really tried to, I really thought we had a good chance on Saturday. And, the sports gods punished me in many ways, Trent, because it was not a good sports weekend in general for me. The Hawks get dominated. My Mets get swept by the Braves and look like they're going to do what they always do, which is find ways to disappoint. And then last night, my Rams get stomped on Monday Night Football. So the sports gods have put me back in my place, Trent. But, I mean, to me, that game on Saturday was really simple. We talked about last week, or I brought it up, Iowa football is built on, not making mistakes and playing clean football. And when we do that, we can beat 80% of the teams out there. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Michigan falls in that other 20% category. I mean, and if Michigan plays clean, mistake-free football, we're in trouble. And that's exactly what happened on Saturday. Is they just played – sometimes you just got to tip your cap to the opponent. They played really, really well. They made zero mistakes. Their offensive line was absolutely dominant. I just didn't see that coming. I didn't see our front seven getting whipped like that. And so sometimes you just got to, like I said, tip your cap to the opponent. Michigan played great. And if Michigan plays great and plays clean football, we're not going to beat them.
And that's the blueprint of Iowa football, right? I mean, it's forcing teams into mistakes. And the last two times that we've seen Michigan, they haven't been willing to do that. Take what Iowa gives you, be methodical. We know we're better up front. We're going to whoop you there. And yeah, we'll take that 6-yard gain. We'll take 3 yards on 3rd and 1. We will take that every single time. We're not going to take chances on throws. We are going to just every single time methodically beat you. It's the old blueprint of Northwestern, right? I mean, when they first started beating, when Iowa got good, 20 years ago, that was the blueprint that they used. We're going to be methodical. We're going to do exactly what they say you want us to do. And starting with Norton Parker, we don't feel that teams at the college level can methodically be perfect down the field to get a touchdown. Well, that's what they asked to do. Michigan's willing to do that. It's funny to say. I mean, it's 24 years later, but this is the blueprint. How has it taken this long for another team to kind of figure out the thing that Northwestern had figured out?
Well, I mean, that's easier said than done. I mean, you got
that's
to
true.
do that. And to me, it all comes down to being able to run the ball. We usually do a really good job of forcing teams to pass the ball. And the only team that's been good at methodically beating us in the pass game is Jeff Brown's Purdue. Mm-hmm. And methodically beating you passing the ball is harder than it is running. But I mean, how many times did they have 2nd and 3 or 2nd and 4 on Saturday? They were just running for 6-7 yards on first down, and it wasn't anything fancy. It was just between the tackles. We don't think your defensive tackles can slow us down, and they didn't. And
right.
rarely do you say this, but they made Jack Campbell look very average. He got pushed around a little bit too. And I mean, again, that's just credit to Michigan. They played really well. And, we have 3 offensive possessions the first half. And I think their first 5 possessions were something like 9, 11, 9, 13, and 10 for plays. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And that's something that, like you said, yeah, that's the blueprint to beat Iowa, but following that blueprint and doing it, one of the things I said last week, I thought J.J. McCarthy would make some mistakes, and he definitely did not. And they did what they needed to do. And, like you said, the officiating was frustrating. There's some frustrating parts to the game, but, the fact of the matter is they were just a better team than us.
Yeah, not a whole lot there. So offensively, we saw some signs, and I talked about this a little bit earlier in the week when we always go and meeting up in the corner at halftime, and talking to a bunch of the guys, and it was, hey, the offense looks better. We had 90 yards of offense at the half, and we're sitting there patting each other on the back about 90 yards of total offense, but it did look better. Now, it's not a high bar. We were the worst offense in the country, but of that growth, I thought LaShawn said something interesting yesterday. Iowa, speaking of having to be perfect and methodical, Iowa just can't afford to miss the throws at Spencer Petras. Petras was better, but Iowa still is not at a spot where even a couple throws a game, we're just not good enough to be able to overcome that. The seam route, a high throw on third down, those kind of plays, we're still just not at a spot. It's not that Spencer Petras is the only problem, but Iowa's in a spot the way that they're built, you just can't afford to miss those plays.
Yeah, but honestly, outside that one possession where he had the 2 really bad throws in a row, he missed Lachey down the seam, and then he missed a free 7-8 yard pass to Brecht on the next pass. Outside that possession, I thought that was a really, really good game by Spencer Petras, and he gave us some opportunities, and I don't know. I know people are frustrated with the 4th and 2 play where we threw 1 yard, but to me, that's more play calling than it is Spencer Petras. I mean, we had 2nd and 4 at the 8 yard line. We were starting to push them around a little bit, and in not once in 3 plays do we even take a shot into the end zone. We run 2 basically 0 yard flat passes and then a run in between the 2. And so, I just. It's every week. I think we're contractually required to complain a little bit about Spencer Petras, but I have no problem with Spencer Petras on Saturday. I thought he put us in a position to have an opportunity. He was 21 for 31, which for him that's 67% passing for Iowa football is as good as you're going to get. So I think he's taken some steps the last 3 weeks. There's I still frustrated with play calling at times. The offensive line still a mess at times. There's still a lack of playmakers. I mean, there's things across the board. But Spencer Petras right now is, to me, he's pretty low on the list of problems right now offensively.
Yeah, there's plenty of blame certainly to go around, and I got you on that one. So you heard it here. Biz is ready for him to take his COVID year and be the starting quarterback in 2023, right?
Yeah, why not, Trent? Well, hell, if he doesn't, who is going to be the quarterback next year? It's a good question. I mean, clearly the coaching staff has pretended that they have trust in Alex Padilla, but they obviously don't. I mean, they have zero trust in Alex Padilla. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, that's a conversation for somewhere down the road, but who is going to quarterback next year? I mean, you give the reins to one of the young guys and hope it works out, or do you do a gap year and let Padilla be the quarterback for 1 year? I mean,
Man, would have been nice for Max Duggan maybe to decide to come home after he lost the job down at TCU. Coaching change would have been very easy for him to jump in the portal and Council Bluffs kid come back to the state of Iowa. Alas, he's got TCU ranked in the top 15 and moving things with Sonny Dykes and company down there. Yeah, I wonder if I gave you even money, both sides, is the next year's starting Iowa quarterback on the roster currently? Yes, they're on the roster. No, they are not. Where would the Bizgard bet come from?
That's a good question, Trent. I'd like to say that it's not on the roster, but I've been an Iowa football fan for too long to know that the safe money is on doing the safe thing, which is letting Padilla do it for a year and then go from there. So put my money on Iowa doing the safe thing.
Yes, I'm right there with you. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of where we are. All right, Biz, anything else on Michigan?
No, I mean, the thing in general, Trent, I mean, it was kind of a demoralizing game. It's one of those things where I think it kind of, for me, kind of solidified that we're just not where we need to be right now as a team. There's, you know, to me, it just showed the gap between Michigan and Iowa was pretty significant. And it's, we're, to hear people afterwards talk about, hey, it wasn't that bad. We didn't get beat 42-3 this year. That's pretty, to me, that's just kind of demoralizing. It's, you know, I think we're beyond moral victories as a program right now. And it just, I don't know, this week's going to tell a lot. We'll transition to Illinois analysis here, but this is to me a really big turning point for this program. If we go and get whooped by Illinois, and then you got a bye week, and then you got Ohio State, things can get really bad. And maybe with that bye week, maybe you're talking about making some changes. We won't, but the heat and the pressure to make some changes during that bye week is going to be pretty high if we go and lose in Champaign, which certainly could happen.
A real possibility. We'll talk about the Illini as we continue here. This is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Our partners at Nissan have worked with us to create a new segment here across the Locked On College Network titled Thrilling Moments, where we highlight the most exciting plays from the Hawkeyes game or throughout the history of our alma mater. This thrilling moment for the Hawkeyes is, Biz, I'm going to say, and you told me before the game as we were searching, that was 15, 20 seconds where we just had hope. Where we had hope. I was driving, gets it inside the 10-yard line. Now, it took a long time to get there because that drive, I had it marked down. They were something at the 18-yard line with like 9:06 left on the clock, and they just kept huddling up and eating clock. Down 2 scores, kept doing it, but we had hope. And what is it? Hope is a dangerous thing. Is that a good way to put it, Biz?
Yeah. So, your read for Nissan show, it said throughout the history. So I'll just my business beat today was going to be a positive moment against Michigan. So I'll just throw it in now since we can say it was the Nissan thrilling moment because I saw this morning, 19 years ago today, Trent, was the Ramon Ochoa game versus Michigan.
Oh, wow.
Still the loudest I can ever remember Kinnick for an entire game. That place was absolutely rocking that day. And we 30-27 win against Michigan, and Ramon Ochoa did a little of everything: kick returns, punt returns, catch the game-winning touchdown. So there's my Nissan thrilling moment. We'll just put business beat in the middle instead of the end.
I like that. I love that.
Because let's be honest, there were no thrilling moments on Saturday. So.
It wasn't thrilling, no. Even with the hope out there was some frustration that was also kind of twisted around with it. I love that. Going back to Ramon Ochoa 19 years ago and the win against Michigan. Not only did he catch a touchdown pass, dropped a touchdown pass, but we'll leave that aside. Thank goodness replay was not. This segment has been inspired by the thrilling new designs featured across Nissan's new lineup of vehicles. Pursue what thrills you with the all-new Frontier, Armada, or Pathfinder today. Available now at nissanusa.com. Continuing here, Biz, and let's get into the matchup this week against former Iowa Hawkeye, big fat polar bear. He is lovely called Bret Bielema. Biz, there were many people for many years that hoped that he would be the guy that would take over for Kirk Ferentz. When he was fired from Arkansas, there was still some hope, even if there was a little bit of a tinge of disappointment the way his career came to a close. And ultimately, he takes the Illinois job. For our whole lifetime, Biz, how many times have you heard, Illinois is a sleeping giant? We heard that for years and years and years. They never got the right guy. Did they get the right guy here?
Sure looks like it. He's got him going in the right direction. And, anytime you can hold, I know Wisconsin's a mess right now, but if you hold Wisconsin to 2 rushing yards, you're doing something right. I mean, right. That to me is way more impressive than what they're doing on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, even in our best, if you hold Wisconsin under 100 rushing yards, you're doing something right. So to hold them to 2 is absolutely amazing. So, yeah, he certainly seems like he's got the ball rolling in the right direction. But, you could have said the same thing. I remember when he was at Arkansas, about year 2 or 3, you said the same thing there too. They seemed like he had him rolling, and then things kind of fell off the cliff for him. So
sure.
That's what I said before. I think this really is an important game. I think it's a game. I know we're underdogs, but I think it's a game we should still win. We should still be able to go to Illinois and handle them. And will we? I don't know. But, I just – they're not Michigan. They don't have that absolutely dominant offensive line. Their quarterback is capable, but certainly not a game changer like McCarthy is. And so we need to go there and do what we always do, which is beat Illinois. But it's definitely not a foregone conclusion this year.
Tommy DeVito,
he's giving them. You talked about hope. He's definitely giving them hope.
Well, and it's a really good spot also for Iowa. I mean, we talk about these games a lot, and it's, I think, a pretty good narrative both on the betting side of things and just looking at things in general in college football. And we're still talking about young guys. We're still talking about guys that I think emotionally have even more ebbs and flows. Hell, you see this in the NFL all the time. It happens a lot. A team coming off a win like that against Wisconsin, coming back home. I saw there was 20,000 tickets available, I think, of as Tuesday night. Things not going to be banged out by any means. It takes a while to generate some excitement. Well, they've watched disappointing football for the better part of 5 decades. You're not going to be able to sell things out right away after a good start to the season. It's going to take a little bit longer than that. So, DeVito, he's played well, but you're right. I've watched this guy going back to his days at Syracuse. He's prone to mistakes. I was due, and I am, as you know, not the most optimistic guy out there. I'm optimistic this week that I is going to play well, that they are going to bounce back, that growth that we're seeing, though not as significant as maybe some people want it to be, it is real growth, and we're getting there. The defense is going to make a couple of plays and come up with a couple of turnovers, and Phil Parker is going to call them out a little bit this week and have them really ramped up. I think I was going to be ready. Is it going to be good enough? We'll see. But at the very least, I think they're going to be ready, and the people saying, oh, we're going to get blown out just like Wisconsin, I think that's crazy talk.
Well, one of the things Kirk talked about in his post game, it was kind of with Michigan. It was kind of a pick your poison type thing where, they spread us out. They had a lot of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets, and then ran the ball out of it. And they beat us with numbers. We only had 5 or 6 in the box because we had to respect their talent on the outside and respect JJ McCarthy as a passer. I just don't think we'll do that against Illinois. I think we'll keep 7 in the box all the time, and we'll force Tommy DeVito to beat us. And like you said, I think he'll make a mistake or two. And, again, it comes down to if Illinois does what Michigan did, if they play clean, mistake-free football, then we're probably in trouble again. But I don't know. I don't see them playing that clean, mistake-free football for 60 minutes.
So we're on the same page for once this week, at least as it pertains to that, which is certainly a little bit interesting. Did you put Stat Boy to work? I know you got vacation going on, you got a lot going on, taking Bodie on a college visit. So you put Stat Boy to work. Did you forget this week?
No. So we got Stat Boy. I sent him off in a different direction a little, Trent. I'm tired of analyzing how bad our offense is or coming up with stats that are depressing. So I got him into the history of Bert. Let's break down Bret Bielema a little bit, Trent, because he's kind of become a cartoon character over the last 20 years. He's certainly not he's not getting thinner. Let's put it that way. And he's everybody knows the basic stories. They know the Jim Walden. It's been fun kicking your ass for 5 years. They know he's got an Iowa tattoo on his leg and those types of things. So, but what you forget about is just how important he was to the Iowa program. And it's an amazing backstory. So let's start from the start, Trent. He's got kind of 10 things to break down on Bret Bielema. Number one, we'll give you a quiz question, and if you can get it, I'll be really impressed. Do you know what town in Illinois Bret Bielema is from?
Palestine.
It's called Palestine. Isn't Palestine like over in Israel?
Something like that.
It's Palatine, but that's my wife is from Palatine. But
okay.
Palatine, they're similar.
Do I get partial credit?
You got I'll give you partial credit. You got the first letter right. Prophetstown, Illinois.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Population of a little over 2,080. So he came from a town smaller than you and I did. Osage is a metropolis compared to Prophetstown, Illinois. Number two, this is one of my favorites from Wikipedia. His nickname is Bert, but he actually has brothers named Bart and Barry Bielema. So those Bret, Bart, and Barry Bielema are the Bielema boys. So
no Bort.
Yeah. So yeah, you get some. So he's got probably the most normal of the three names. But so number 3, Trent. This is where he get into his career. It really is amazing. As a senior in high school, he weighed 185 pounds. So wrestled 185 and made all district as a wrestler. So, but yeah. So shockingly, as a 185-pound defensive lineman, he had 0 scholarship offers, not a one. So he walks on to Iowa. As a freshman walk-on, he bulked up to 198 pounds. So he came into Iowa weighing under 200 pounds, which, as you'll see in a little bit, I mean, I'm not sure anybody else ever you can tell the story of a guy that goes from under 200 pounds to a starting nose guard in Iowa football. So started at 198. As a freshman trainee, he actually played a little bit as a freshman. He was so obscure. The Michigan game, we lose 26-12 the Michigan game his freshman year, but he was so obscure, he didn't even have a number assigned to him the week of the Michigan game. He got in against Michigan in the second half, made 3 tackles. He was number 86 at the time, and nobody knew who he was because he wasn't in the his number hadn't even been assigned the week before. So I'm sure if that happened now, Dolph would do a really good job of identifying him. So.
Yeah, I can only imagine how oh my, and of course he wouldn't get the name right. It would be an absolute disaster. I mean that in its own right. I mean just the story of him getting to Iowa City, the time period, the size. Yeah, defensive linemen and offensive linemen are a lot bigger today than they were even at that point in time. But to think that this self-made guy just got there and made an impact right away, it'd be, I don't know, like seeing Louis Steck out there. Oh, yeah, we do see Louis Steck out there a little bit, but those kind of guys that just go out there. It's quite the crazy story. All right, continue on, Biz.
I mean, you'll never. I mean, with today's world and the way that kids, work out and everything, high school has become so much more organized with workouts and everything. Will you ever see a 198-pound kid walk on and become a starting defensive tackle ever again?
Yep.
I mean, that's unheard of. I mean, there's multiple articles that Statboy sent me about, just talked about the greatness of the weight room at Iowa. I mean, we'll break it down, Trent. He went from 198 as a freshman, 225 as a sophomore, 235 as a junior, and then up to 265 as a senior. So he got up there, and he was a starting nose guard his senior year. But it wasn't all smooth for Bielema. As a freshman, he also late in the year living in Slater Hall, Trent. He got arrested for a harassment charge.
Oh no!
Paid $86 and paid the harassment charge. I put Statboy on the assignment of trying to figure out what the heck he did to get charged with harassment. Couldn't find it. So who knows? But
maybe Hayden made a call over to Captain McCarney in the police department.
I don't know, but yeah, just a casual harassment charge. When Statboy sent it to me, I assumed it was going to be public intox or a Paula charge or something in there, but no, a random harassment charge. So, but by senior year, he's starting nose guard and co-captain of the team, and obviously senior year is when he pulls out the famous "been fun kicking your ass for 5 years," which as an Iowa fan puts him as high as you can possibly get in the respective Iowa fans. So, but then, and this is where he really makes his mark. Honestly, I mean, he was a capable football player.
Yeah.
But afterwards, he coached first for Hayden and then stayed on for Ferentz and was linebacker coach. Remember what area he was in charge of recruiting?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because it was something that I remember us talking about at 520 South Capitol all the time. It was Florida. We got to get Florida guys up here. So Benny Sapp, Fred Barr, George Lewis, that group of guys that came in, of course, Brad Banks ultimately, that was his designation. And it gave us, in a time at Hayden's last year and into the first year of Kirk, there wasn't a whole lot of hope. I remember having hope about that maybe, they're not beating the Gators or the Seminoles for any of these guys, but maybe this is a different course, something that Iowa hadn't done before to bring in some different type of players and help get the program rebuilt.
Yeah, I mean, you listed a couple of them, but I mean, it's even deeper than that. It's Brad Banks, C.J. Jones, Mo Brown, Colin Cole, Antoine Allen, Freddie Barr, Abdul Hodge. I mean, you can make an argument that he was probably one of the 2 or 3 most important pieces of the turnaround in Iowa football. I mean, obviously, Kirk Ferentz deserves a huge amount of credit. You've got Phil Parker, huge amount of credit. But man, that having that young recruiter who went out and found some gems in the state of Florida, I mean, really was part of the turnaround. I mean, and those guys, all those guys, that 2002, 2003, 2004 years, I mean, he had but by that time he was gone. He moved on to Kansas State, but his handprints were all over those years at Iowa.
I remember the story of 2001. I was playing Michigan, loses a tight game. Marquise Walker made maybe one of the greatest, most athletic catches in Kinnick Stadium history on one hand down in the end zone, on the other end from us in the student section. And the story went, Benny Sapp was guarding him at that time, and he was ready to leave. In fact, he was sitting at a bus stop ready to leave Iowa City. He was going back to Florida, and Bielema found him and got him back on the team. And of course, Benny Sapp ultimately went on to play in the NFL and has got a son now playing in college. So, just how different things can be. And he was also known as that kind of coach, a guy that, yeah, he's a hard ass, but he's also a player's coach. He's a guy that everybody has really liked. And Iowa at that time, as they were building that staff, that was another important one. They needed a guy like that could not just be a guy that'll holler at practice, but a guy that could also, when a guy's having questions, talk to them and keep them on campus. And ultimately, that's also a very important thing.
Yeah, I mean, what he's done, you kind of forget just how important he was to that program. I mean, his story is pretty amazing. To go from 185-pound senior in high school to a starting nose guard, and then go on to being one of the most important recruiters that Iowa's had in the last couple decades. I mean, his relevance to the Iowa program is pretty significant, and so hopefully he won't have any relevance on Saturday. Let's hope we can find a way to put him back in his place.
Yes, absolutely. And with all that being said, we hope Bert gets clobbered on Saturday. Anything else on Bert before we get ready to make some picks?
No, let's transition to some bad picks.
We certainly have that. Our picks this week and ever brought to you by BetOnline, number one source for football betting information this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. As always, BetOnline remains your continued source for every sport out there, live betting and up-to-minute scores for every sport you can imagine. Final couple days of Major League Baseball. Right around the corner, we got the playoffs, MMA, boxing, you name it, they have it. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Biz, let's get started here this week. And I'll be honest, at this point, I haven't got real deep into my handicapping, but the way college football betting has gone for me, I am absolutely crushing it right now in the NFL, which is, of course, the kiss of death. I'm going to go the other way because it's the NFL, and that's nearly impossible to do well at that. But college football, I don't know. I'm just not seeing it this year. How are you doing betting, you and your degenerate trio that you have?
Oh, right. Pretty mediocre, to be honest. Kind of right in the middle. We're not, we're not, what was the saying from Seinfeld? Not showing off, not falling behind. Yeah. Right in the meaty part of the curve. But yeah, unfortunately, last week I doubled up on Iowa as my bet. So that didn't help me last week for our purposes. But again, my optimism was clearly misguided last week.
Yeah, you talked me into it. I only got one win last week. I had Clemson. You were on the NC State side of things, so it was not a pretty week. It's not been a pretty season for us, but we'll try it again and hope for a 3-0, and then we can beat our chest when we finally do it at some point in the season. The national game this week, Utah, UCLA. Watch a lot of UCLA on Friday night. Impressive. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, certainly outstanding. That defense, though, woof, they got some problems. And, it's interesting. You look at the college football rankings right now in the AP, they don't matter, obviously, in the course of the college football playoff, but they can at least give you a little bit of a look ahead. And what is the top team with a loss already? It is the Utah Utes. Lose early as opposed to lose late. That's the path, and still a path for the Pac-12. What do you see here with Utah and UCLA?
I'm way too confident about this game, Trent. I love Utah. I mean, they're a team that every time I watch them, they kind of make me jealous a little bit. They're a team that I wish Iowa would pattern. They don't have a ton of skill talent, but man, they are a physical team and they are a creative team. They find ways to get the ball on the edge. They find a way to get tight ends involved. They run the ball great. They're kind of in some ways what Stanford used to be in the Pac-12. They're that physical, we want to be the bullies of the Big Ten. There's no doubt right now Utah is the bullies of the Pac-12. So, which isn't saying much, but you don't have to be much to be a bully in the Pac-12. But give me Utah -4, and like I said, I feel way too confident about that pick.
I'm with you. I just think the defensive issues for UCLA are going to come up here. I think you said it all. So we agree. And this is getting dangerous because we talked about the Iowa-Illinois game a little bit earlier. Let's get into that one now. I believe, listening to you, listening to me, I think we both like the Hawkeyes this week. Ugh.
Yeah, I think 3.5 is just too much. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be an ugly game. But like I said, I really do think Illinois will make enough mistakes that will pull out the win. But it's pretty simple. If they don't make those mistakes, we're probably in trouble right now. And but I think it'll be a low-scoring game. So in a low-scoring, ugly game, give me the team that's getting more than a field goal. So give me the Hawks +3.5.
All right, to stay away from the kiss of death, as we both pick the same team, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to your trick. Give me the under. It's 35.5. That thing's probably going to plummet even more. Of course, we talked so much about it leading into the Rutgers game, but that one, it took 14 points out of the defense to barely inch over the over. Give me the under 35.5. One that has continued to drop as the week has gone on. Wrapping things up, our picks presented by BetOnline. Biz, let's talk a little bit about your best bet of the week.
I wanted to bet them last week, Trent, and I chickened out. I thought I liked Nebraska last week, and so I'm taking Nebraska this week. Nebraska -3. Two things. One, I think Nebraska has plenty of talent and is going to be decent the rest of the year, but this is more a bet against Rutgers. I just think Rutgers is absolutely terrible. So I don't think Rutgers wins the Big Ten game this year. So give me Nebraska -3 on a Friday night special.
Friday night special. It's going to start off in a good one. All right, so you're going to lay it with Nebraska. What was that number?
-3.
-3 is all? Really?
Yeah.
I think we're going to have a family play on that one. I will be jumping aboard with you. In fact, right after we wrap up with the podcast, I'm going to go to my favorite app and fire away at that one. All right. It was supposed to be the game that game day was at this week. It was supposed to be Jimbo against Saban, all the pomp and circumstance of this summer and the back and forth. And then, of course, Texas A&M doesn't show up. The number and the injury to Johnson's a little bit nerve-wracking, but Bryce Young being out, Alabama, though they ended up coming in and covering the game against Arkansas, that was a 28-23 game before they pulled away. Their new quarterback, he can't throw. He is a zone read quarterback, and that is all he can do. I'm getting 24 with Texas A&M. I understand. Yes, Alabama's going to be fired up. Alabama in these kind of spots under Saban actually hasn't been that good, so I'm going to grab the 24 points. Give me Texas A&M on the road at Alabama.
Trusting in Jimbo Fisher, that's never a good thing. But I guess I'm trusting in Nebraska, so I have nowhere to say.
And we trust in Kirk Ferentz every single week, and here we are to try to run an offense, and his son at his side. Alas, that is a show for today. You gave business beat out already. Ramon Ochoa, we had a ode to Bret Bielema. Safe travels out there to Boise. Beautiful.
Yeah, Trent, it's kind of sad. It's I'm going to Boise. The wedding is actually literally the exact same time as the start of the Iowa game. So I'll be missing these parts of the game. And there'd be certain games, certain years where I'd be truly heartbroken by that. And honestly, I'm not even that bummed. That kind of tells you where Iowa football is at right now is if the Bisgard family is willing to go to a wedding instead of catch part of the game, things are not going great for the Hawks right now. So no home games for 4 weeks, and I'll be honest, that's not a bad thing right now. You need a little breather away from this offense, maybe a little bit. So,
just a year ago this time, Iowa was ranked in the top 5 in the country. Here we are a year later, and Biz is not so sad about missing a little bit of an Iowa football game. How things have turned. Well, safe travels out there. Best wishes to your niece.
Let's be honest, but an hour before kickoff, I'll be figuring out a way to sneak my phone into the wedding anyway.
Well, we know that. Yeah,
it's easy for me to say that now, but come Saturday, I'll be ready to roll again. I'm
a couple of IPAs in your belly, and all of a sudden, that'll seem like a great idea.
We're both a glutton for punishment, Trent.
That we are. And we'll punish you next week with more Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. I'll be back with you later in the week. More look ahead to Illinois. Also came up with some numbers. We'll crunch some things. And also a mailbag coming on Thursday. Send your questions to me on Twitter at Trent Condon is where you can find me. Hit me up with your questions as we'll do a mailbag episode coming up on Thursday. Until then, Biz, we'll talk again next week.
All right, go Hawks.